Hi, I'm Larry Micarenda, and welcome to Suffolk County Money Watch with Suffolk County Comptroller Joe Sawicki. Joe, we left off last time talking about deficits, numbers, and we were waiting for you to come in with some new numbers. Audits were being done, so many other things we have to talk about. Let's start with the Suffolk County deficit.
The deficit numbers were just released recently, as you alluded to, and it took a while this year because there were so many costs that were associated from Superstorm Hurricane Sandy that really affected the county, affected a lot of the towns as well. But in terms of the county, we were waiting till the last minute to get the various expenses in from the departments, anticipated revenues through FEMA and the federal government. But the county's financial dilemma is just that. The financial statements came out. It's a big, huge dilemma for us and the bottom line of our financial statements for 2012 is that we're showing a $155 million deficit. I have to qualify that, though. It's really not a $155 million deficit. It's more of a $99 million deficit, which is it's still really bad. It's a really serious situation. Just to back up a little bit, we have to realize that the last administration left County Executive Ballone with a $60 million deficit. So Steve Ballone started right in the hole as soon as he took office for the first day, and that was a shame. But it happened. They've made a lot of cutbacks in the county, over 700 something layoffs between the county executive and the legislature that they made for over the last couple of years. But obviously, it's still not enough. They still have a long way to go. If you figure that if there's a $99 million deficit in reality because of some other revenues that we couldn't book in 12, that's why the expenses went up and the deficit came out to 155 million at the end of 2012.
Right.
There were like some other revenues that we can't realize until 2013, so it's kind of a wash between 12 and 13. So a real deficit of 99 million. So if you figure that county executive started out with a $60 million number in the red, then the deficit was probably more under his administration was $40 million. A lot of that was a result of expenses caused and economic conditions and slowdown caused by Hurricane Sandy, as I said before.
The snowstorm.
The snowstorm, exactly. A slowdown in sales tax collection, a big slowdown in real property taxes collected. But even so, a $40 million shortfall combined with a $60 million shortfall when you took office leads you to about a little over $99 million. I'm a Republican controller. The county executive and legislature are Democrat. It doesn't matter what political parties that we're all at. Over the years, we've always worked together and managed to do the people's business for the good of Suffolk County, even going back 15, 20 years ago. You put politics aside and the legislature and the county executive working with the controller, my predecessor, they always made the right decisions on behalf of the taxpayer. I have no doubt in my mind that this will be done. The county will get out of its deficit. And it's like Long Island lags so much in its economy, and a slowdown in the economy, it lags well behind the rest of the nation. We lagged behind when we fell into the tough economic situation, and now we're lagging coming out of it. But I really think this is the worst year. I mean, you got to remember, too, Larry, that the county's been hit really hard, as many municipalities have, with increased pension costs from Albany. And again, result of the downturn in the stock market from '08 and '09. And the state controller, under law and under the state constitution, has to reinvest or restore that fund to what it was prior to the stock market crash in '08. So that's led to a lot of millions and millions of dollars of increased pension costs, which none of us ever anticipated 3, 4, 5 years ago. So the bottom line is that the legislature, the county executive, they'll make the tough decisions, and both political parties will come together and will do the right thing for the taxpayers. I just do the reporting as the chief accountant, as the controller of the county, if you will. We do the reporting of the financial statements. It's good that I'm elected to the office. I mean, even though we always talk about having the independence and doing audits, but it's also having independence and coming out with a real, true financial deficit or a surplus, is that there can be no political manipulation of the numbers. So our audits, our numbers, our financial statements are subject to audit by one of the largest international accounting firms in the world, Ernst & Young. That audit will be done by mid to late June of this year, which will have real final numbers to see how close our numbers are of 155 million. So some interesting times ahead, but I really think that, don't forget, the county's budget is almost $2.8 billion.
Right.
A $99 million deficit's tough, but it's certainly not insurmountable. There are a lot of
Right.
challenges that lie ahead, and we'll be working with the legislature and the county executive in the months ahead and over the next couple of budget years, to resolve the situation.
And they're trying to trim whatever fat they can. I mean, they're actually cutting down to the bone right now in the county because they don't want to jeopardize the services. But one of the things, your service that you offer, Joe, you were saying about doing audits and stuff, you're almost like the financial investigator for Suffolk County. And last time we had touched off a little bit about Haven House. You want to tell the county residents about that?
Sure. I think we talked about before is some basically in general audits that we do of homeless shelters and other agencies around the county. We also audit county departments. But will we see an issue where the Department of Social Services may reach out to us and say, hey, we think that money may not be spent properly in accordance with the county's contract on this particular agency? The Suffolk County Department of Social Services has hundreds of contracts out there with agencies, and those agencies, by state law and by county law, have to spend the money in accordance with the contract. Haven House has been a very has been an excellent homeless shelter, providing very valuable and needed services for the homeless, both shelter and food. And they've done a good job of it and take nothing away from them. The audit found absolutely no wrongdoing whatsoever in terms of legality. But when it comes to abiding by contractual terms, we found that $546,000 was not spent in accordance with the contract.
Right.
The owner of Haven House obviously was not happy with our audit because we wanted $546,000 back. I mean, that's not Suffolk County's money. It is, but it's really taxpayers' money. Right. And I want to get that back for the taxpayers. So it was a long, drawn-out process where he refused to pay any part of the $546,000. I made the decision in the office that as we're going forward, we would withhold $20,000 a month until we got our money back. He took me to court over that and lost that after a second decision that I had the right to recover taxpayers' money. So the good news is that, which is good news for the taxpayers and good news for the Haven House itself, because it is a fine shelter, is that we reached an agreement and we reached a repayment schedule over 5 years, so he could repay the $546,000 back, and the county will get its money, and the audit will, a lot of these agencies, a lot of the homeless shelters, like to challenge our audits and our authority to do the audits. But I mean, we're the chief auditor, quote unquote, in the county charter. We are the only watchdog that there is, the county controller, of the county's $2.8 billion budget. So, of course, I have the authority, and it's been upheld in the courts. It's been upheld in county law, which has been challenged over the years. And if we don't have the right to audit and to get money back for Suffolk County taxpayers, then what are we doing? I mean, we can't give a blank check to agencies and departments to run as they will. And so I'm glad we reached this legal agreement, and takes it out of the courts. It's settled, the lawsuit's settled, and the taxpayers win. So that's so I'm thrilled, delighted to be able to report that today.
Well, we can't have a fiscal watchdog with no teeth, and
Yes, absolutely
that those audits, as we've been doing the show for 5-6 years now. You have a long history. You worked with phone review. You found money through the phone companies that was owed to the county, and all these other things. And right now we're at 99 million. Okay, and like you said, every dollar is going to count, and
Absolutely.
500,000 that's a substantial number.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so that
absolutely.
already brings it down from 100 down to 99, like you were saying.
Even when you talk about the role the controller plays. Not only do we audit and do the financial statements for the county, but we also are the borrowing authority for the county. The legislature and the county exec pass a resolution authorizing the controller to go borrow long-term for capital projects, open space, the new jail, etc. We also borrow short-term, which is an annual or biannual, semi-annual borrowing that we do.
Right,
and
you were talking about this last time on the show.
Exactly.
About the percentage race, and I believe it was the tax anticipation notes?
Right, the tax anticipation notes. Since then, we've borrowed a couple other short-term for cash flow needs because of the county's deficit, because of our cash flow has been short. we've had to borrow some revenue anticipation notes, what we call RANs, and some
Right.
bond anticipation notes. Just at the end, in the beginning of April, we borrowed over $150 million. It'll be repaid in 8 to 9 months. We got 0.61% of an interest rate, 0.61%. So even in spite or despite of some of the downgradings that we've
Right.
experienced because of our deficit situation by Wall Street rating agencies, even though we're encountering some very, very tough fiscal times, the financial community, the people who invest in Suffolk County, who lend us the money by buying our notes and bonds, they still have a lot of faith in Suffolk County's ability to repay. And they know that we're a financially solvent municipality, and our track record is that we will absolutely pay back every dime that we borrow with our with the appropriate interest.
Now, most people, like maybe some lay people who may not know about finances and everything like that, that really don't understand how big of a significance that interest rate really is, Joe. Because if you had to pay back, the county had to pay back at 2%, what would the cost be to the average taxpayer and to the county? It would be huge. I mean, because it's such a large amount of money.
Exactly.
So when you're talking,
if you're talking $100 million, at 2%,
exactly.
$2 million. If you cut that down to 0.6%, now you're at $600 million as opposed to 2 million. 600,000 as opposed to 2 million. So it's a
Right.
big. Every $1 million adds up. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I
Every
get
million, every thousand adds up.
I get dumbfounded when I sit there and look at the numbers because we do reviews before the show and stuff like that, and I'm like, I can't believe it, because if the county had to really pay, like if they were downgraded to like a B bond or something like that,
Yeah.
it would be, the cost is astronomical.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's one of the things that you do in your job is to get the best rate. Now you also you had left off last time, just to touch briefly a little bit more on this, with the banks, and the banks treat Suffolk County pretty good. You have a good relationship with them and get good rates, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just talking about, the rates. The 0.61% that we borrowed, and back in December, I believe we borrowed at 0.67% for our tax anticipation notes. So I mean, we're borrowing well under 1%, which is almost free money. And it's it's good because it benefits the taxpayers. We don't need any additional interest expense on the backs of the taxpayers in these tough times. I mean, with the finances and economics so tough, and facing Suffolk County these days, and our all our hard work. I mean, this is not me. This is working with the county executive below, with the legislature. I mean, every legislator up there I have an open dialogue with, and I have a good working relationship with, and I enjoy that, and that makes things flow so much better. And when it comes time to make some tough decisions, it's the give and take that really works to the fruition of the taxpayers.
But Joe, you don't always just have to work with the county legislator and the county executive. You've been working with congressmen, the state controller, state comptroller, excuse me, and all these other people. And one of the things recently that just happened, which is really a mind blower, municipal bond tax, which is out to kill every town and every county in New York State. Can you tell the public a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's quite disturbing news. And this came out of the Obama administration, one of the commissions on how to cut the federal deficit, and I was contacted by Congressman Tim Bishop a couple of months ago, and he brought it to our attention in the county, both myself and Steve Ballone, that there was part of this commission that from the Obama administration, a way to cut the deficit would be to either cap or eliminate tax-free municipal bonds from the federal level. And there's a lot of people out there that have a portfolio for retirement, for savings, and it's made up of tax-free bonds.
Right.
Suffolk County, all our bonds that we issue and sell are tax-free. If that was eliminated, then that would increase our borrowing costs. We did an analysis for 2012. All the money we borrowed long-term that was tax-free in 2012 for all the capital projects, it would have cost us approximately $12.8 million more. It would have cost the taxpayers $12.8 million more if they had to use taxable bonds, buy taxable bonds as opposed to tax-free bonds. And you can't do that to people. You just cannot do that to the public, because now all of a sudden we may be helping erase the federal deficit, but now you're passing that cost onto Suffolk County, onto a municipality. So you could, to me, it's a disguised mandate by the federal government. They're hiding this cost and trying to pass it on, and you're hurting not only people's investments, but you're hurting the county as well, because you take $12 million out of our budget. And if we have a very finite budget and very tight budget because of the economy and whatever, that $12 million could be the difference between a major road resurfacing or repavement. It could be could make the difference of a major capital construction project somewhere in the county. And every time you have a project like that, whether it's road resurfacing and repaving, or a new capital construction project itself, a new building, or a renovation of a building, that translates into more jobs for the employees of the county, for our labor unions, and it's just too much to sacrifice taking away. I commend Tim Bishop, our congressman. He did a great job nailing this thing on the head. He brought it to our attention. We had a press conference together, and we, myself, Steve Ballone, and Tim Bishop, we denounced the Obama proposal. It's in the House Ways and Means Committee now, so hopefully we'll, be able to make enough noise, us and many, in Suffolk County and as many municipalities from around the country can't give this up. And, it's a trickle-down effect that you worry about, because, again, if a municipality has to make a difficult choice between $12 million in a project and they choose not to borrow for the money for the project, so now that trickle-down affects jobs, as I was talking about, affects the income of the workers that were going to be in those jobs.
It's the pebble in the pond. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then, you just can't. It's a bad road to go down. So,
it ripples down. But
exactly,
again,
trickle-down effect.
Like you said, one of the things with your position now, you have to work all over. I mean, you're doing some work with Tom Spoda. We'll get to that a little bit later. But one of the things that we left off in the last show was the LICVB bonds, I believe, or audit.
The audit, yes.
Down. Can you tell the public a little bit about that?
Yeah, the LICVB stands for the Long Island Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's an agency, has about 15 employees, and it was designed, well over 20 years ago, to be an agency, Long Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, to advertise and promote tourism in Suffolk County. And their main mission is to advertise regionally, nationally, to attract as many tourists to Suffolk County and to Long Island as possible. Obviously, the more tourism we have over the summer months, and now, of course, it's the spring and the fall with the East End wineries and other such attractions that we have going on. That translates into more sales tax for Suffolk County. It's a good overall boost. However, we're finding now, and we did an audit at the request of legislator Jay Schneiderman, which Jay represents basically the South Fork and the southern part of Brookhaven, who's very concerned about how the Long Island Convention and Visitors Bureau was spending county money. The Bureau itself is funded predominantly through a 3% hotel-motel tax that tourists pay when they rent a motel or a hotel room overnight in Suffolk and Nassau County. That 3% tax for 2012, generated over $8 million. $8 million.
That's a lot of clams.
That's a lot of money. And 24% of that, which was almost $2 million, goes into the coffers of the convention, the Long Island Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we wanted to get into it and say, okay, how are they spending, Suffolk money, almost $2 million a year? And what we found, we didn't like what we found. I mean, the agency itself is a fine agency, but it's almost like where the county is using a middleman to promote Suffolk County's tourist attractions. Personally, I think our beaches over in the Hamptons, I think our wineries, I think the Vanderbilt Museum, I think all the various, attractions of Fire Island, Port Jefferson, whatever we have, to name just a few, we are renowned. I don't know how much advertising the Long Island really needs to attract visitors and tourists. I think it pretty much speaks for itself and generates, a lot of, return type of tourism. So spending $2 million, I recommended in an audit report that we just released that instead of giving $2 million to this agency, why don't we just do it in-house, hire several employees that would maybe at a cost of $400,000, $500,000 with a small budget, promote Suffolk County in-house, save $1 million to $1.5 million in the county's budget, and keep, and keep that money in the county's general fund, as opposed to hiring a middleman to promote. And the middleman we found, the convention bureaus, they actually sent out RFPs, requests for proposals, for various work that they want, advertisements, a design of a website. They hired a firm down in Arkansas and spent $160,000 to do that. This is all Suffolk County money.
Right.
So I really question the need for this agency. They are made up of 15 full-time employees, and they just recently sent out for proposal the design for a travel brochure for 2013 for Suffolk County, a Suffolk County travel brochure for 2013. So it's like, number one, what are they doing in-house? Why do they have to RFP and sign a contract to outsource that? When we could do that very easily, I think we could come up with our own Suffolk County travel brochure in-house. So this is another way we audit. Not only do we look at how money's being spent, but we also want to look at the performance and the viability of a certain agency, especially when we're spending, $2 million a year.
Yeah, and how much better would it be that if we can keep that money in-house, that if the Bureau was going to spend that money, it was all right here in Suffolk County, using Suffolk County businesses and stuff like that.
Exactly. And we found a lot with the Convention Bureau is that a big finding, Larry, is that while we were giving the agency $2 million a year in 2012, Nassau County was only contributing a little over $700,000.
Right.
So we're giving almost 3 times as much, 2.5 to 3 times as much. The agency is promoting Nassau and Suffolk, Long Island as a region. Well, that's fine. Why are we spending $2 million and Nassau's only spending $700,000? So that's another disparity that the audit exposed.
We're not getting good return on our money.
No, we're not getting good return on our money. And I know there's some members of the legislature that are very perturbed by our findings, and we're recommending ceasing doing business with this agency and doing it on our own. It's time we have to make government leaner. We have to do more ourselves, and we have to do it with a lot less resources.
And I think that's going to be another subject to come up on upcoming shows on what's going to be going on with that Bureau. But we're a little short on time, and there's 2 more subjects that we wanted to hit on. One thing led into another, Joey, just talking about the hotels. Now, there's a hotel audit going on with the
the natural progression, real quick,
Right.
The natural progression is every hotel, motel in Suffolk County legally has to collect the 3% motel tax, motel tax. It's paid by tourists that come to Suffolk County and spend the overnight or longer. And we want to make sure in our audit that every hotel and motel in Suffolk County is collecting it and paying it to the county. And so that's what, because such an audit has never been done, and that's a natural progression. We found out that if $8 million is raised now from hotels and motel tax for Suffolk County, could there be more out there that some hotels and motels tax aren't giving Suffolk County? So we don't know until we do the audit, so stay tuned.
Right. So that, again, another subject for an upcoming show.
Absolutely.
Now, we also had, on the last program, we touched a little bit about some of the military personnel that were collecting. They were double dipping, taking 2 checks when they weren't supposed to, and nothing against them or the military.
Right.
But, again, Suffolk County looking for anywhere, money's being misspent. Can you give us a quick update on that?
This whole military program started real quick about 11 years ago, and actually started after the Iraq War and Persian Gulf War in the 1990s. The county said for all the county workers that invest their time and effort and risk their life and put their career into the military, that if they have to take a leave from county service, the county will guarantee them the highest salary. If they were making more money as a county employee, they will continue to be paid that money while they're serving their country.
Right.
They are not allowed to keep both salaries. You're not allowed to keep the military salary. You're not allowed to keep your county salary. Only the higher of the 2.
Right.
That was a very generous, but a very well-intentioned program that the county legislature back in the 90s, and again, it was passed again with the second Iraq War in 2001, 2002.
Right.
So what we found is that well over $1 million was not even being gone after by the county departments that these men and women belong to, and that indeed through who knows why, but no one ever went after these reservists to pay back the lesser of the 2 salaries. And number one, before they went away and served the country, they signed, by county law, they signed a personal agreement with their department that they would return, upon return, they would pay back the county their lesser of the 2 salaries. because again, they were getting 2 paychecks while they were away. Some of the military fought in combat situations. Some of them never left the United States of America, our own land. So you say to yourself, okay, wait a minute. If there are indeed tens and dozens of employees out there that are military reservists not returning the money to the county like they're supposed to, what kind of county system is there, and how much money are we talking about? The bottom line is we found that several departments didn't even keep track of it. They never went after these reservists to pay the money back. I get stuck doing the bad stuff, if you will, but it's county money. And it's rightfully due Suffolk County. It's not rightfully. Nobody can rightfully keep 2 paychecks. It's just not right. And so the audit was just completed. We got back for Suffolk County a little over $1.7 million, and it affected about 80-something employees had to return that money back. If we didn't do this audit, that money would have been long gone. And it wasn't easy going after military people, but at the same time they fully understood that, hey, we did the right thing. I also have to tell you that while we got back of $1.7 million, there was another $1.8 million that was indeed paid properly by the men and women who came back from military duty. So kudos for them. So they paid almost half, a little more than half the amount that was due the county. They did the right thing, but other people kind of said, sweep it under the rug, and kind of we hope it go away, and the county will never come after it. 10 years later, and shame on us, on the county for over the past 10 years for not going after this either. It's you just can't turn your head and look the other way. It's not good, and because it's taxpayers' money, especially when you have half the group that have paid back $1.8 million already. You're going to let the other half, the other $1.7 million, just walk away and pay nothing?
Right.
It's just not right.
Joe, we're out of time for this edition of Suffolk County Money Watch, but I want to thank you for coming on the program again and enlightening Suffolk County to where their money and finances are going. And we'll catch you right back here on the Suffolk County Government Access Channel. Stay tuned and take care.
This is Joe Sawicki. I'm your Suffolk County Comptroller. If you ever need to reach me, please feel free to do so by dialing 631 in Hauppauge, 853-5040, or by shooting me an email at the address as you can see.